Yeah, welcome back, everybody. This is Night Flight, and today I have Susan Jane with me. Our topic will be our intuition. What's up with that? And her website, if you want to visit it, is intuitivenature.com.au. And she also has a YouTube channel. Please consider subscribing. So, welcome, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you, Judith. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. So please let us know how did that happen for you that you got interested in investigating our intuition?
Well, intuition came. There's a big story, a big backstory for it, and why it became really, really important for me to be able to share this. So at the time I was 18, going on 19, and I went on a holiday with my younger sister. And we went, actually, we went from one state in Australia to another state, and it's where I'm living now, actually. But while I was there on holidays, my younger sister went back to the unit, and I was heading back to the unit. And as I'm walking back, I was tapped on the shoulder, turned around, and was hit, was punched in the face, ended up being knocked out and getting dragged into the back of a car. Now, in this situation where I'm in the back of this car, it was a pack rape, so it was an attack on me. Now, the thing is, what happened when it was I was being attacked? Um, Fought back like you would do, you normally do, and that just resulted in more bruising and more problems and more pain. So I stopped doing that, and I remember thinking to myself, how can I can't stop these people doing whatever they choose to do with me. I don't even know if I'm going to get out of this alive. But how can I stop them doing this to anyone else? And in an instant, I'd left my body and I was standing outside the car looking in at what was going on. Now, when I talk about this story, I often talk about it as she or her because it didn't feel like me. I
Hmm.
remember looking around and the environment, even though it was at night, it was like a full moon night, but it wasn't a full moon night. It had that beautiful blue haze around it. And I remember looking around thinking, is anybody going to help her? Now, I couldn't walk away. I had to stand there and watch what was going on. And I remember looking in and thinking, I could see blood coming down the side of her mouth, but I couldn't taste anything. And I remember the smell of cigarettes and alcohol when I was in the car, but I couldn't smell anything there. I couldn't see the same things, but when I looked at her, I could see like um, when you have that heat coming off a road and you've got that heat haze, I could see that like energy coming out the back of her head where they dragged her into the car by her hair. And I could see all the pain and the areas that were throbbing and the areas that were calling for help type thing. But I couldn't do anything. I just watched. And as I'm watching, I have no emotional connection to this. It's like you're watching a show and you're not really connected to it. Even though I couldn't move away, I couldn't turn away, but I was connected, but I didn't have any emotion to it. There was no emotion there. But as I'm standing there, or believe I was standing there, I get this. Now, people call it a booming voice, and I understand why you call it a booming voice, but it's not a sound. It's you don't hear it, you feel the vibration. So if you could imagine being close to a big drum, and you might be deaf, and you will feel that vibration of the drum if somebody hit it close to you. That's how it felt like, this vibration that came through you. And in an instant, I was back in the body. Now, once I got back in the body, the emotions jumped back in, the feelings back in, the pain came back, everything came back all at once. But so did the answer to the question that I had. And the answer to the question, because I asked, how do I stop them from doing it to anyone else, was now, I've got to say this, I'm not a religious person, not at all. I don't follow any organized religion. I'm not that way inclined. Yep. Yeah. But I was told to pray, but not for me, but to pray for them. And I only knew one prayer. So it was, forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. That's the only words I knew. And I repeated them out loud. And I got louder and louder and louder and just kept on repeating the same thing. Naturally, they didn't like it. Naturally, they weren't impressed with that. But I kept on going until the hands around the throat and the hands around the mouth and nose made me unconscious. I came to in the gutter on the side of the road. And that was my first experience. As horrific as it was, that was my first experience. Almost 12 months to the day of the attack, I was at work and I had what we class as a near-death experience. I passed out. I had this amazing experience where I went up, where I was, the same sort of thing, the big booming voice saying, "You're not supposed to be here," type thing, and came back into my body. And I didn't understand what any of this was. It didn't make any sense until about 10 years later when I started to read and get right into spirituality and books. And I read books like Real Magic, Jacques de Guan, Creative Visualization. And I started to get an understanding of what had happened. Because with these two experiences, I never shared them with anyone. I refused to even share the attack with anyone until I felt I could share it and it create a positive experience somewhere along the line. So it would help somebody or some it's along those sort of lines. So while I'm doing all this reading, I've got this understanding of what a near-death experience was, which I had no idea then. And I've got an understanding of what like disassociation, what leaving your body was all about. And so I had heard about we have two bodies or we have more than one body. We have a physical side and we have a spiritual side. Now, I'd heard all about that as I'm doing these readings, but it didn't sort of make a lot of sense until I started to reflect back on what had happened. And then the third time I left my body was done deliberately. So I was looking at astral traveling and I was practicing and practicing and practicing. I'm a theory tester. I don't just read books, I like to test the theories. And so I was practicing and practicing until I actually did astral traveling. I only did it once. That was enough. Okay, I know what it's all about. But that was the lead up to understanding what the physical body and the spiritual body were about and how that they're sort of connected. Once I got to that, one of the things I sort of said, because again, I'm a theory tester, was how do they communicate? Now, if the spirit, I know when I was in spirit, I couldn't talk. I couldn't communicate that way. I never felt, you couldn't feel things. You didn't have the emotion attachment to it. You didn't have a lot of you didn't have the five physical senses. So in spirit, you don't understand the five physical senses. You have to be, a spirit has to come into a physical body to get the knowledge and the understanding of what the five physical senses are. So this sort of led me to thinking, well, we've got the physical side and we've got the spiritual side, and they're so very, very, very different. How do they communicate? And
Hmm.
that's when I started getting into intuition, because for me, intuition is the communication between the physical side of us and the spiritual side of us, and the spiritual side back to the physical side. So I see it as a two-way conversation, a two-way communication. So we get intuitive messages, we get an understanding of it, and all of these, I believe, are linked through our chakras.
Hmm. Okay. I just have to ask, did you ever find out what this attack was about?
The only reason I talk about it, like I said, is because I wanted to find a silver lining. My silver lining was exactly that. I left my body. I got an understanding of what intuition was. I experienced trauma on a very, very high level. Um, and I feel not lucky, but I sort of feel honored in a certain way, is because I can help and communicate with other people because I've sort of been there, done that.
Hmm.
And
No, I
I
mean
know that,
from the perspective of your attackers. Why did they do that?
oh, they were drunk. They were, yeah, I don't know. Why do men rape women? Basically, that's what it was. It was just a pack rape that they decided that's what they wanted to do.
And that happened?
Yeah. Yeah. It was, yes.
Yeah, that is that
Sorry,
is
I didn't mean to
awful. And
lead
then
with that sort of a
no,
story.
no, but then they just left you there.
I came to on the side of the road. Yeah,
Oh,
they didn't know whether I was alive or dead. I don't think, but I came to on the side of the road, and yeah, car was gone. Didn't know where it was because I was on holidays and I had to try and work my way back to the unit. Yeah, all bruised, all bloodied, a complete mess. And I mean, there's other things to it as well, Judith. It was like I remember walking back to the unit and or finding my way back to the unit and thinking, thank God it was me and not my sister, because my sister was still a virgin. She was still a young girl. So all I could think of was, well, I'd experienced what, sex was all about. I knew what they were wanting after the hits and the, beatings and everything else. I knew what they wanted. I didn't know whether I was going to come out of it alive. But all I could think of was, well, if I can't stop them doing this to me, which I can't, how can I stop them doing this to other people? What can I do? And I mean, I think about it, and I'm not a religious person, and I sort of think praying, I mean, for goodness sake, get real. That's not very grounded. That's not very real. But that's all I could do. And I honestly believe to this day, two of the three of them did change. They had to live with a lot of guilt, but they did change.
hmm. So you mentioned you never talked about this to anyone for a long time.
Yeah.
Does that mean you didn't report it to the police?
I didn't report it to the police. I didn't know where I was. It was the day before we were due to leave to go back home.
Hmm.
We got into the car. Mum and Dad picked us up from the airport, and we got into the car. And Dad said, "Oh, at least you put on a bit of weight. You're looking a lot better." And that was because of all the swelling. And I just sort of, yeah, didn't say too much, but it was my sister, who ended up saying something to them. They phoned the police and tried to report it, but there was nothing they could do. You're 2 states away. We would have had to go back up there to report it and everything else. And in those days, like we're talking a long time ago, it was almost like their word against yours. And I'd seen so many other situations where this had occurred, and the woman was basically put over the coals for it. It was almost like, oh, it's your fault.
Yeah, yeah.
So I didn't want to go there. That's not where I wanted to go. So, and I also didn't talk about it. I didn't have any counselor or anything. I didn't talk about it because I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't understand about being this disassociation. I did not know what that is. I didn't understand what leaving your body was. It meant nothing to me. I just it was just silly. It was crazy. It was too hard to talk about the rape to start with, and then it was even harder to talk about the crazy stuff that happened as well. So, I got to the stage where no, I'm very internal. I tend to go in rather than external. So I had to go through it and understand it and get a learning and grow with it in that context. 12 months to the day when I had the near-death experience at work, it and they had to use an adrenaline. There was a doctor's studio, a doctor's practice right beside the bank. I was working in a bank then, and the doctor had to come in and use adrenaline to get me back, get the heart beating again. But and this is how crazy it was. In those days, I got back in my car because I couldn't stay at work. I got back in my car and drove home. Like nowadays, they wouldn't let you do anything like that. You would have been straight to the hospital, and been checked over and everything else. I sort of went, I don't feel very well. I just want to go home. So I got in my car and drove home. I ended up being out of work for about 2 weeks after that. It really knocked me around. And yet we never ever found out exactly what it was, what the
Hmm.
problem was.
Hmm.
So in reflection, I can see what happened. I can get the understanding of it. I can get the learning behind it. But yeah, during the time, it was like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on. I was only 19, 20, like no idea.
Hmm. So after this experience, you tried figuring out what it is that makes the spiritual side and the physical side communicate.
Yeah.
And that is what opened the avenue to intuition.
Yes, yeah. I went along those lines. I probably do a bit more psychic type work and things like that now. But I went to intuition because intuition for me self felt safe. I didn't feel like I was going off in any other tangent or I wasn't following. Mind you, I got into everything. I mean, I really enjoyed reading about all the different modalities and everything else. But for me, intuition felt secure. It felt very feminine too. And I know it's available for everyone. It's very masculine as well when they really tune into their gut. But for me at that time, it was very feminine. And one of the things that I needed to get an understanding of when we're doing work with our intuition is we need to get an understanding of ourselves first. We need to really know who we are, what things mean, what the signs, the symbols, and everything like that mean. So once we start to get to know ourselves, you will be able to connect with your intuition a lot better and a lot clearer, and it flows through a lot easier. So I started reading book. So I was in a 20-year emotionally abusive relationship. I've been there, done that a few times, different crazy things I can assure you. So, but yeah, I put my hand up. Yes, I had one of those relationships, the empath with the narcissist. Um, and in it, again, another situation. I had three children in 3 years, and I must have been experiencing a little bit of postnatal depression. Um, and that's what everybody tagged it as, postnatal depression. But it was like, I'm not depressed with my child. I'm depressed with my life, my relationship. And I was being so emotionally abused that, it was easy to put a label on it as postnatal depression when it actually wasn't that. And I remember this particular day, my ex-husband dropped me off outside a doctor's surgery and said, "Oh, for God's sake, get something for it." Now, this was when Valium was the drug of choice for women in those days, or for men doctors to give to women in those days. Anyway, so he dropped me outside the doctor's surgery. I'd gone into the doctor's surgery. Now, I was really lucky in the context that it was a new doctor, a female doctor, and she did alternate therapies as well. So I've gone in there and she sort of said to me, "What's wrong with you? What's the problem? What's wrong?" And I just broke down in tears because I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't think anything was wrong, but nothing was sort of right either in the same context. So I was really, really confused and upset, and I'm trying to be that person that my husband loves, and yet everything you do in a narcissistic relationship is not right. So the more you try, the more you sort of beat yourself up on it. And anyway, she went through and she must have, talked me through the little tick boxes that you go through. I'm not really sure. I was not quite with it then. But in the end, she said to me, "There's nothing wrong with you." And she was writing on this notepad and she got the doctor's prescription and she held up both of them. And there was a notepad, a piece of paper here and the doctor's prescription. And she said, "I want you to make a choice. You can have the Valium if that's what you want, and things will all calm down and rah rah rah." She said, "Or you can have this piece of paper. And on this piece of paper, there's a list of 5 books I want you to start reading." And I was in such a state, in such a mess, that I took the easy way out. I grabbed that list of books because I knew how hard it would be to get off of Valium if I got on it. So I took the easy way and I took that list of books. And when I went out, didn't I get told, "Oh, what have you got?" He was expecting me to be on some sort of medication and I had a list of books. But I was strong enough to say, "I'm getting one of these books, at least one of them." Now, I couldn't afford any money and he wouldn't give me any. And so I went to the library and I could get a couple of books from the library. And that's when I started to learn about me. And it was those types of books that I got, the personal development books, the I got a lot of finances books too, so I could, grow in my finances to be independent. I got lots of books to help me grow and develop. And in those books, I found me. I found little bits and pieces of me. One book might have a little bit, another book would have a bit more, and then I would just find bits and pieces of me. Nowadays, we've got the internet, so we don't have to go through all the books, but it's the same principle. You take on board what suits you, what feels right, what resonates with you, because that's your intuition, and you let go of the rest. So in this relationship, it allowed me to find myself. So as much as he kept on pushing me down and my self-worth and everything else, it pushed me down long enough to be able to make me pop back up and get an understanding. It took me 8 years to leave that relationship because I needed to be strong enough to do that. And I solely, wholly recommend anybody in a situation like that, don't leave until you're strong enough never to go back there. And that means never to go back, not just to the one you've been with, but to anyone else like that. Did
Yeah.
I answer the question, Judith?
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, no, I get it. Um, yeah, that is an unfortunate development for many people that they attract one narcissist after another.
Yep, yep. If they're not strong enough to do it there, if they've not learned enough about themselves. One of the things after that relationship broke down, that was, like I said, it was 20-year marriage. When that broke down, one of my hardest things was making a decision. I really struggled because for such a long time, everyone else made decisions for you because you weren't allowed to, type thing. And then all the big decisions, at least you had someone to bounce ideas off of. When you're on your own, when you first step out onto your own, it's making all those decisions. And it got so overwhelming for me. I remember I would go to the shops to buy groceries and I was on my own and I couldn't think of what to eat. And I reckon for about a month, I all I could eat at night was jam sandwiches because I could not make a decision when I was in the shops as to what to buy for that week. And this was when I started to go, I've lost trust in myself. I've lost trust in myself to make decisions. And that's when the intuition started coming. What does it feel like? Why? Why am I not trusting myself? And this is where me developing my intuition, me growing in that side of it, and why I feel it was so strong is because it helps us learn to trust again. And the first thing we need to trust, first person we need to trust is ourselves.
Mm. And developing your intuition has helped you along the way of trusting yourself again.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I had to learn lots about myself, and then I had to learn how to trust myself again. And in doing that, it builds your intuition up. It naturally builds it up.
Yeah. A lot of people, of course, say, yeah, intuition, that's all woo-woo. There is
Absolutely.
not really anything to it. I would disagree with that sentiment, and I'm a strong supporter of the idea that we actually have three brains, the actual brain, your heart, and your gut.
Yep.
And the best thing is if these three things are in balance and work together instead of against each other.
Yes, absolutely. And look, the other thing is because I see it, the intuition as communication and it goes via our chakras. Why do we call it our gut instinct? It's because it's going through our solar plexus, or through our sacral chakra. And that is all about how we get an understanding. So when you imagine you see a nice, person, somebody you're quite interested in, whether it's male or female, it doesn't matter, but you'll often feel it in your base chakra. And so we know that's more of a sexual, well, I'm quite, pleased to see you type thing. And when we go up and when we talk about the heart center, well, you're communicating through your heart chakra. And so it is going into your spirit and back through, in and out, through your physical, through your spiritual, through your physical. And so this is where they get the terminology, your gut, you've got to go with your gut. It's because it's actually coming through your chakras.
Hmm. Hmm. There is one point, and I think you are actually the perfect person to answer that. How, sometimes, especially when people have a some type of history of abuse,
Yeah.
how do we make sure that what we are feeling, what we are listening to is actually our intuition and not our trauma talking? You know what I
Yes.
mean? You meet
Too.
somebody, and for some stupid reason, maybe he or she looks a little bit like your abuser, or there's a smell, or the voice, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And because, the gut reaction is pretty much unfiltered, and it's about pattern recognition. And of course, that pattern kicks in. So, how do you distinguish between that?
Well, then we go right back to trust because you've
Mm-hmm.
got to trust that information that's coming through. Now, when you're getting this information, and I would say I I'd have to say 95% of people, if they're in a relationship and their partner is having an affair, I would say 95% of the times you know that it's happening. It's just you choose not to, or you choose to let it go. So when you're talking about a situation like that, when the trauma's talking, that is when you really do need to trust your intuition and sort of go, well, hang on, where am I feeling this? Where is the understanding of this? Who am I, and why am I attracted to that sort of thing? It's all this reflection. It's reflecting on who you are. I remember going through a lot of times where I did a lot of those fun quizzes. Like I've got a quiz on my website. It's a fun quiz to get an understanding of you. You do the, what is it? The oh, there's lots of different quizzes. The personality quizzes. Any of those. You can do your birth chart. You can do your zodiac sign. All of these give you an insight to who you are and why you might be behaving that way or why you might be attracting things. And it doesn't mean it's right or wrong, it's just what you're doing and where you're going. So say for the zodiac, and I'm not real good on the zodiac or the star signs, but if you're one sign and we have a positive and negative to every sign,
Mm-hmm.
you're this particular sign, you may be attracting the negatives because you haven't sorted through your stuff to get an understanding and say, well, yeah, I get depressed, but I get depressed for a certain reason or in a certain area or a certain way. And because you're putting that out, that's what you're attracting back. And when you're getting a better understanding of yourself, you will then start to feel that something doesn't quite feel right. Yes, they're ticking this box. Yes, they're ticking that box, but there's something else about it. And these little flags, these little intuitive messages will come to you. And it's about you trusting them and not letting it go because we will make an excuse for it, easily make an excuse for it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you know it's the trauma talking, or when, if you're thinking about it, if you're going, is that the trauma talking or is that my intuition? As soon as you ask that question, you will know, you will get that answer. You might not want to take that answer on board, but you will get that answer. It is like, as soon as you ask, should I go down this street or that street? The first response you get will be the answer. If you overthink it, if you start to think more about it, or you start to weigh it up, or you start to put logic to it, that's when you ruin it. But it's that first answer. So if you can go back to that clearness of, is this person right for me? And you get this, oh no, they're not. Oh yeah, but they do this, and yeah, they do this, and they're good with this, and they're good, and you make those excuses up. That's the trauma talking. The excuses are the trauma talking. If you
Mm-hmm.
go right back down to the beginning. Often you can use a pendulum. I'll often use the pendulum to get the
Mm-hmm.
yes no answers. Different things like that. You'll get an understanding. In kinesiology, they do the finger test. Where you link your fingers, yes and no. The hardest part about yes and no is making sure you ask the right question. Okay, but this is where you go back to your card deck, your oracle cards. I remember doing one. I had a deck. I can't remember what the deck was. It had one yes and one no, and all the rest was sort of fluffy in-betweeners. And I remember saying, I want a clear answer. I want a yes or a no. Should I do this? And the yes came out. Now, out of a deck of 54 cards, shuffling, the yes came out. Now, you can't get much clearer than that. I didn't do it, and I kicked myself for it because I got the right answer and I still ignored it. But I remember that really clearly, and I remember it because I did ignore it. If I had done it, I probably wouldn't remember that I asked, because I say the three things. Ask. When you ask a question, when you ask for advice, when you ask for support, should I be with this person? Should I not be with this person? When you're asking, what it does is it opens you up to receive the answer. If you're not asking, you're not going to, or you might receive the answer, but you're not going to receive it as clear. So you ask, it opens you up to receiving. I tell people to ask at night when you go to bed. So ask the question then. You'll probably get something in your dreams, or you'll probably get something in the shower in the morning. You'll get the answers coming through. Ask, it opens up to receive. Receive that information. And then the third thing is to action it, not like I did when I asked the question for the cards and I got the yes and still didn't action it. Then we need to action it. Now, the thing is with that, actioning obviously can be a lot different, and we go into a lot of deeper stuff and detailed stuff. But the first thing is, if you are not sure, if you're not sure if it's a trauma speaking or if it's your intuition, ask. And if you're in touch with the angels, ask the angels. If you're in touch with God, ask God. Ask your spirit guides. Ask anybody positive. Anybody positive. To
Mm.
bring that information through, and you will hear it. There was one, I've just got to share this one. Sorry, I feel like I'm talking too much. There was one incident. We were driving down. I'd been talking to my partner for a little bit. We were talking about something. I can't remember what it was, but we were driving down our big main road down here in the Gold Coast, and it was the big M1. And we're driving along, and he goes, "Oh my goodness, did you see that billboard? That's exactly what we were talking about." And I said, "No, I didn't see it. I just didn't see it." Going along a little bit further, and then I said to him, "Oh my goodness, they're talking about it on the radio. Did you hear that?" And he goes, "No, I didn't hear it." So we receive these messages in different ways. Um, on the little quiz that I was telling you about, it breaks it down to see how you receive your intuitive messages, your strongest intuitive nature, whether you receive it physically, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. So we receive these informations different way. He obviously was hearing it. He obviously was seeing it. He's more of a visual, and I heard it. So I was more of the audio Aud audio. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah. Um, so w- let me see if I get this right. So when you get it in a physical way, then it might be smelling, hearing, um, seeing. What about
Yep.
feeling?
So the other thing I used to get to, my hands would go very, very blotchy. So they were assigned to say somebody around me needed a healing when I was doing healing work. So that was another physical sign. Butterflies in the tummy, that's another physical sign. So a lot of those are the physical signs. The emotional signs are when you sort of go, oh, the emotional signs is it doesn't quite sort of feel right. Remember, have you ever walked into a room when someone's had an argument?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
That's
yeah.
emotional.
You
Yeah.
didn't hear it, but you step in and you
Feel it.
immediately
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
something was going on here. Here was at least a verbal fight.
Yes. And I have clients that come in and I'll say, "Oh, how are you?" And they say, "Oh, good, thanks." And I go, "Well, say that with a little bit more conviction, because what you're saying, what you're putting out there, I'm feeling the energy is not the same. The emotional energy is not the same. So it's sort of getting those underlying areas like that. So emotional energy, all of them can be a little bit challenging too, because you don't know if you're feeling it or if somebody else is feeling it. So
Hmm.
it's deciphering what's yours and what isn't. So that's the emotional side of it. The mental side of it is those thought patterns that we get. Now, one of the things I have broken down is the physical side and the spiritual side. So the physical side, has a sort of a knowing. So we've had this experiences, we've got the knowing in our head. The imagination is the spiritual side, and it's through past lives that the spirit has lived. And that's why they can imagine. That's where you're getting all this imagination come through. That's why people that are creative, and they allow that creativity to flow through. A lot of that is intuitive, very, very intuitive. That information that's coming through, I'm just going to do this painting this way, or, it's very, very flowy when you get into that flow stage. But with mental intuition, I remember saying to somebody, I wanted to go back to university. I was 48 at the time, wanted to go back to university. And somebody said to me, "Oh, you're doing all this and selling up and doing everything. How do you know you're going to get into university or not?" And I didn't even think of the response. It just came out. It was like, well, if I don't get in with that course, I'll just get in with another course. It was like, you know, and I remember thinking, well, where did that come from? So it's those thoughts that just come through that you're not really aware of. And then spiritual intuition is when you're getting right into the flow. So you could do that through meditation. You can do that through journaling. You're not really thinking. You're bringing all of them in together. You could be feeling it. You could be thinking it. You could be, physically knowing it, getting that understanding. But a lot of the spiritual stuff will be like with the psychic work and different clairvoyance and different things like that. So we just bring it in a little bit differently.
Mhm. You mentioned something which I think is being stifled these days, and we are unfortunately happily participating in this. And that is our imagination, our creativity that gets stifled by non-stop dragging our attention to our phones, to the 24/7 news cycle. The
Yeah.
attention span in general is not much more than that of a goldfish. And um, yeah, I find that really problematic. And I think these are developments that will cut us off from our intuition.
I I do agree with you. I do feel that that is very much because when we're cutting ourselves off from the intuition, we're cutting ourselves from our true self. We're cutting ourselves from our spiritual side. So once we start not hearing those messages, not, responding and understanding them, we are cutting ourselves away from that spiritual side of us. And that's not a good thing. We can have both. We don't need to have one or the other. We can have both, but we've got to do them in a meaningful way. So when we want to play and scroll and everything else on the TV, on your phone and all the rest, that's fine. It's when we get lost in that, when we start going down these rabbit warrens and scrolling warrens, I think they call them. That's when we've got to say, no, hang on, let's put a timer on this. When you do a meditation, you might do a 20-minute you might do a 10-minute meditation, but you might put a timer on as well, just to sort of go, well, at one stage I would be meditating for an hour and a half, and I had to stop going that long because it was too much. It was dragging into my day too much. And we can bliss out too much just as much as we can scroll too much. So we have to get that happy medium in this day and age. So if it means putting a bit of a timer on, I have now, and I've only just started doing that. I'm starting to do the doodling, like I get a little scrap pad and I start to do some coloring in and start to do some doodling on that side of it because I don't want to be on the phone in the evening. I want to move away from the phone or the screens in the evening. I don't mind having the TV on in the background and I sit there and I do my doodle. I feel like I am letting my creativity flow without being constantly attention grabbing from the phone. So even if you did that once or twice a week and start to slow things down a little bit, pick up reading, pick up something else, I think you'll find that a lot of people would sleep better. I know I do when I'm not on the phone before I go to bed. And it's about putting your priorities a little bit more in line with it. Um, Look, there's always positives to the internet and everything else, especially when you're trying to find out what intuitive messages, like if you're getting messages coming through, it's nice to sort of Google what does this dream mean, or what does that mean, or what, So what does an owl sitting on a fence mean? Little things like that. It's good to get that because you're researching it. But at night, it's not the best time to do that. We want to be slowing down at night, and I don't think it's just the internet and the constant barrage of information that we're getting. I also think it's that you're not letting your brain stop, letting just your imagination flow, because we're watching everybody else instead of letting our imagination go where it needs to go. One of the things I do a workshop on intuitive flowers, which is sort of my book. And it's the flowers are your goals in life. So you draw a flower that represents your goal, and then we do a reading on it. The stem means your path or journey to get to your goal. The leaves are your guides that will help you to get to your goal. The petals are of attraction. What you put out, you attract back. How do you want to, what are you putting out there? And it's amazing how people will look at it and they've drawn the picture. I've not given them an understanding of it. I've just said, draw a flower that represents your goal. And it's amazing how it all breaks down and they get a big understanding of it. So intuitively, because they've allowed it to flow, there's no rules apart from it being a flower. There's no rules. It doesn't have to be botanically correct. It doesn't have to be anything like that, and they see their intuitive messages on that piece of paper. They can see what they've got to look for. They can see what guides they need to be more observant for. If it's somebody they know, if it's a masculine, if it's a feminine guide, is there lots of them? What information am I listening out for? And they get all this by what they've drawn because they've allowed themselves to stop and let it flow.
Mm, yeah. And personally, I think there is a plan behind this. There is a reason why,
Yeah,
as you said,
yeah,
technology, it is neutral. It's how you use it
use
that
it.
determines if it's good or bad. And yes,
Exactly.
I think it's good that we have the internet, otherwise we couldn't talk right now
That's true.
and we couldn't communicate. I would probably never have stumbled on your work. Um, but this constant overstimulation,
Yes.
and that is where we have a choice. We can participate in it or say, mm-mm. I give you one example. I mean, 2026 started with a bang. Yeah. The tone for the year was set with the abduction of Maduro. And then now we have the Iran situation. And what I absolutely hate is that some people, and yes, I know it gets clicks and whatever,
Yeah.
but can we please stop yelling every 5 minutes, Third World War?
Yes. Yes, please. Yes, I'm with you there. And let's face it, we have control. If we don't like it, don't look at it. And that's how I've got, Judith. I don't watch the news anymore because we know that they only put out there what they want to put out there, so I don't listen to the news. I had another lady, she goes, oh yes, I just follow this other social media, and she goes, that's what I follow. And I go, well, you don't know whether that's true either. You're still believing in something that you just don't know. So as I said to you earlier, I'm a bit of a cave dweller. I'm happy living in my little cave. And I might not know what's going on out there, but it's not making any difference.
Mm,
Whether I know it or not, it's not making any difference, apart from maybe I feel a bit lighter and a bit brighter from it.
mm. Actually, I do like to know what is going on,
Yes.
because it also gives me the opportunity to prepare physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Yes. Yes.
Um, I usually combine it with the cosmic energies that are kind. 2026 is an extremely interesting year from an
Mhm.
astrological point of view.
Yep.
And but at the same time, I can distance myself from it.
Yeah.
I know not everybody can do that when they
Yeah.
get a horrible message. It bangs right through, and the entire day is ruined, and they have anxiety, and fear is coming up. And I think we can train that to look at some information and then say, okay, take a step back. Because all this yelling of, oh, it's the end of the world, it's the end, and now famine will come, and World War Three
This.
will
Oh,
come, and yada, 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 yada.
yep. Yep.
Yeah, maybe, but at the moment when I feel into it, I don't really get it. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's not the information that I'm getting, and
Yep.
this constant banging on this, everything is going down the toilet, um, because then you end up in a place where you by default manifested collectively,
Yes.
although it could have been prevented.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But see, you've got to be emotionally intelligent enough to do that.
Mm.
And if you've not done the work behind you, a lot of people wouldn't be able to do that. Like you say, they take it on board, they take the fear with it and everything else. I mean, look, the reality for me was if the world does come to an end, I mean, I'm happy to go in the first wave. I don't want to be hanging around. Like let's get this sorted. But then, I mean, I've had a few experiences in my life, and I'm not afraid of passing over. I'm not afraid of going over that side. I don't want to go there yet. I'm certainly enjoying my life, but I'm also not afraid. So, yeah, I tend to not worry about it. But if you're not emotionally intelligent, you really have to be careful. You've got to look after yourself because it's so easy to go down yeah, the doom and gloom and start to live in that doom and gloom and create it, like you said, for yourself or for the collective.
Yeah. I mean, we also had this during COVID, and it was a horrible time.
Mm,
Um, I I had days where I really felt exhausted from all the nonsense, yeah, that was
mm,
going on.
yeah.
But at the end of the day, we have to see that a lot of plans did not manifest. Yeah, with I think they would have liked to push it further and further, with here for a while we had this 2G, 3G. You only were able to enter a restaurant if you were vaccinated or if you were recovered, and all this nonsense. And
Yeah.
of course, there were people, yeah, this will never go away. And now they will pick it up from there, and it will get worse and worse and worse and worse. And it didn't.
No, and funnily enough, since then, I've noticed the flip. I've noticed that there's more people pushing back nowadays than
Mm.
there was before. And thankfully, COVID has helped that because now people are not tolerating that bullshit. They're just not tolerating it. Sorry, that's the
Yeah,
technical
yeah,
term for it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I, how can I put this? Our intuition, I think it is a wonderful guide
Mm.
to through this crazy world. And the best thing, of course, is how do you do that to keep it in balance? Because we also need our analytical side. Yeah,
Oh,
we
100%.
we need the ability to think things through.
Yep.
If
Yep.
So, how do you manage that?
Well, to start with, I'm very, very analytical, right?
Mm,
And all these years that I've been doing this, I don't promote anything that I can't ground and make sense out of. It has to make sense for me. If
hmm
I can't make it make sense, it's not right. So everything has to make sense. So it's always got to be grounded. So I'm not off in the woo-woo, and I find it really discerning sometimes when I listen to people and they start to bring in channeling and everything else that can be a little bit like it's a little bit more holier than thou, and I start to get a little bit concerned about it because everything should still be everything goes through a filter, and when we're connecting with our intuition, we're connecting with our true self. So it's not necessarily going through a filter, it's going through us. So when I'm even working with the psychic side of it, if I was working with a spirit or an angel or somebody else, it's all filtered. When I do mediumship and it's a person there, it's still filtered through me to give it to the response to my client. So when a person comes through, a parent or loved one comes through, I'm still filtering it. So I'm feeling what that spirit's saying and filtering it out, and this is how I feel it is coming through. So when we're channeling, when we're doing all of that, any of that sort of information is coming through secondhand and being filtered through. So we have to be mindful of all of that. Now, if somebody has this mindset of doom and gloom, the end of the world is coming, and they're doing channeling, that's what's going to be coming through the filter. And they're
mm,
going to be like concreting what they've said. And this is where I go, we need to be discerning about that. We need to be mindful. I'm not saying that they're wrong, and I'm not saying the information is incorrect. I'm saying the way it's been filtered can be different. So we do need to be analytical. We do need to get that understanding. Like my other job, when I work part-time, is digital marketing. I love looking at spreadsheets. I love the analytical side of it. So I do feel if we can't ground it, if we have to trust too much in something else rather than trusting in ourselves, then I say you've got to look at it a little bit more. You've got to make it strong. You've got to make it analytical. You've got to make it grounded. And there is times there where especially when you're getting in the emotions, when you feel like you've fallen in love with somebody and the world's all rosy, that's when you get a little bit analytical. Is it really the right person? You know, do they tick this box? Are they financially secure enough? Or can we do that together? Because we are a spiritual being in a physical body, but we've still got to live in the physical. And if we're too spiritual or too physical and we haven't got them balanced, then we're out of whack.
mm,
So yes, I absolutely, we do need to be analytical. So there's things like, okay, as we were talking about before about the doom and the gloom, I'm not collecting and storing things in case the end of the world, but I do like to grow my own vegetables. I do like to do things like that. I like doing my own craft work. I like painting. So I buy a little bit more extra paint to make sure that when the end of the world does come, I can do my painting. So, so it's getting that lovely balance. If you want to buy extra stuff, do it because you want to, not because you're fearful. Get that
mhm,
analytics right. Yeah.
mm. What would you um, suggest to somebody that says, yeah, I think my intuitive muscle needs a little bit training. So, what would you suggest where to start and how to do that?
Where to start and how to do that. Okay. One of the things that we do is we get a lot of symbols, visions, and understandings and feelings. So there's lots of areas there that we can work on. To start with, say our feelings, our emotions. So some people might say they feel a bit sad, but usually that's an easy emotion to say. What I would say is go in a little bit deeper and find out exactly what it is. Are you really sad? Or is it that you're just a little bit flat? People say, oh, I'm a bit flat. I know I say I'm a bit flat a lot. But what is it really? Why are you flat? What is that other emotion that is connected to it? And what does it look like and where it to go? So you start to go a little bit deeper. Everything you see, you hear, you have your attention drawn to or brought to, has a, an intuitive message for you. So,
Mm.
like I was saying, when you're in the car, you might hear a song or a song gets stuck in your head. Oh, gosh, doesn't that drive you crazy? So you get a song that's going over and over, and you might only know one or two lines of that song, and it goes over and over and over in your head. Ask yourself, what does that song mean to you? What is that about? Because these are all little messages that you're getting. What's that song about? Now, you might not get it right the first time. You might find it's a different little bit of a different response the next time you hear it. But we all have it for a particular reason. You might hear somebody over talking in a restaurant, and you just pick up a very short little sentence that they've said. Why did you hear that and nothing else?
Mm.
Why did I hear that on the radio when we were in that car and yet my partner didn't? It's all those sort of areas there that we look at. One of the examples that I had is I had a young girl once as a client come in. She was a young girl, and I call them visitors. A visitor came through, and I said, "It's a young man, and he keeps showing me a ring on my hand, the ring on the hand, like it was in my palm, and he kept on showing me that." Now, when you see a ring in someone's palm, what does that mean to you? And this is what I had to try and decipher. As I'm seeing this image, I have to try and decipher. And this is what I'm saying to everyone else. When you see or you get these understandings, you've got to decipher what it is because you get used to that. That's your message. So with this one, it wasn't on the finger. So it wasn't a marriage, it wasn't a relationship. It was off in the palm. Were they handing it to somebody? Or were they taking it away from somebody? So we've got to get the understanding of that. Now, the feeling I got, it wasn't hers, he was showing her. And I said, it feels like first love. And because I said to her, do you know anyone that's passed? And no, no, don't know anyone. I said, it feels like first love. And then she sort of had the aha moment. And the whole scenario behind was, and she was only like 21, she was so young, but she said, the she went to primary school, the young school, with a guy, with a young fella, and they were best of buddies. So it was like her first love. On the day of her engagement to another man, he was coming to the engagement because they were best of buddies, and he was killed in a car accident on the night of their engagement.
Oh.
So there's the engagement ring, there's the feeling. And we're all different. But and the only reason I've explained that to you is because it can come in so many different ways. There's no right or wrong. It's getting used to how we feel, how we understand it, what we see it to be. What does a round circle mean to you? What does a square mean to you? All these different shapes. What do different colors mean to you? And this is how you build up your intuitive muscle because as soon as I see blue, I think of communication. Now, blue is a lot of other stuff too, but for me, my first thing I think of is communication. So, plenty of blue, they're really good communicators, or they need to communicate a little bit better.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
that's how you start to build it up. And that's about building up, and as I said earlier, learning who you are. When you know who you are, you know what those signs and those messages mean.
I think one of the problems is that we have been, yeah, conditioned in a way that we usually expect to get the right answer from
Yes.
outside. And we need to talk to an expert.
Yes, yeah. And
And
look, that's true. And an expert can help us and guide us. But one of the biggest things I wanted to put out there is that I want to empower that person. I want to empower you to be able to know that you can do it yourself. Sure, you might need a bit of a helping hand, but you can do this yourself. And it's a learning to trust you and trust yourself and trust those decisions you're making, even if they're not necessarily the right one. They are in the long run because you learn from it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And that is building the intuitive. intuitive muscle is a good way to come back to yourself and realize that in many cases, you are the best authority to give yourself the answer.
Absolutely. In all cases, it's just that if you're not quite in the right headspace, it can be not so good for you. And that's when the trauma and everything else talks rather than your intuition.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, wow, wonderful. I enjoyed this conversation very much. You have to come back,
Yes.
definitely.
If I come back, we'll do a flower reading. Judith, you
Yeah.
can do your own flower. You can draw your flower and we'll do a reading on it. Or you can
Mhm.
choose one from the internet. We do that too. And we can do a reading on it and you get an understanding how your intuition's picked it or has chosen that image or has drawn that image and all the little information that comes with it. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, okay, but I'm the worst person in drawing. I can tell you
And that's what
that.
makes it good. All right, I'll let you pick one. I'll let you choose one out of the internet. Well, so when I'm doing that, I would say to you, like we've got to work out what your goal is, get an understanding of that. And you only need like one word. It could be finance, it could be business, it could be career, it could be health, whatever it is. It only needs one word. Um, Relationships, whatever it is. And then I would sort of walk you through and I'd sort of go, well, what color is that? And if
Hmm.
you sort of go, oh, it's this particular color. So then what you do is you Google that color flower and you'll get heaps of them. But because you've connected with the emotion to it and your intuition with it, you will be able to choose. You might scroll through for a little bit, but you will be able to choose a particular image that resonates with you. And when you get that image, that's when we do the reading.
Okay, okay. Because I admire people that are very skilled at drawing. I'm
Oh,
absolutely not. I'm such a loser at drawing.
I don't pretend to be any good at drawing either, I must admit. But it's so nice. Like I have one lady and she said to me, she goes, I don't know what happened. She goes, the picture when you were doing the meditation, the image I saw was a beautiful pink hibiscus and it was all frilly and lovely. And this was about her relationship, a relationship goal. It was all frilly and lovely, she said. She goes, when I went to draw it, I picked up a yellow pencil and it was all yellow. And so she had with big round leaves. She goes, it's not what I saw, but this is what I needed to draw. And very, very basic flower, round center, big round leaves, petals, sorry, big round petals. Very, very basic. Just colored it in, put a bit of paint and a bit of water. Really, really basic. But it was so synonymous of what she was looking for. Because I said to her, well, the petals of attraction, you've got five of them. There's five main areas in your life that is really, really important, that are really, really important to you. And I want you to write those five down. And one of them was honesty. And there was a few others, I can't remember. I just remember the honesty one. And I said to her, okay, so these are your five areas. Now, what you have to do is put that out because like attracts like. You need to be honest and open and put that out to attract somebody who's honest and open as well.
Mhm.
And that was a little bit challenging for her because she tended to keep to herself and she wasn't going to express herself and she wasn't, that way inclined. So she had to change a little bit to attract the right person to bring in, the partner that she was looking for. So it was really interesting.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, and next time we can do that.
Yeah, we'll have fun with that.
So, okay, that was it, guys. Night flight for today, and we see you on the next one.